So Games Workshop has confirmed that the next big reveal for Warhammer 40K is going to be coming on the 17th of November. Let's talk about the announcement, what game systems are getting reveals, and all the hints and teasers that we've had for what is coming for those so far. Hello and welcome back to Warspets Tactics, where today we're talking about the next big Warhammer reveals, which Games Workshop just the other day announced the date for. Apparently this next reveal show is going to be coming from that Warhammer World Champions event that Games Workshop's holding in Atlanta in the USA. They have previously told us that there was going to be one mid-November. I think that was mentioned in the last reveal show with the AdMech Sniper, and now this one's confirmed by Warhammer Community to be the 17th or 18th of November, depending on where exactly you are in the world. I talked about that event in a previous video. It's Games Workshop's kind of curious Warhammer World Cup type affair. People have done well in tournaments and things from around the world, competing both against each other to win the overall prize, and also to score their country the most points as well. That's happening for 4 of their game systems, though 40k is apparently by far the biggest, and they're also doing some grand narrative events going alongside, something that they've done in previous years, where they have factions duke it out to determine the fate of one little corner of the grim dark future. The reveal show is going to be happening on the Friday night at that event in Atlanta in the USA, so 10 PM there, so a fairly late one. That translates to 7 PM Pacific time on the other side of the USA, and a handy 3 AM in the morning here in the UK, so thanks very much for that, Games Workshop. I should be free to make a video at the time though, so I'll stay up for that one. As ever, they'll be streaming their reveals over on Twitch. Typically when they announce these things, they also tell us which game systems are getting content and which ones aren't, and it looks like this one's going to be one of the biggest ones in terms of variety of things unveiled. We've got Warhammer 40k, Age of Sigmar, Horus Heresy, the Old World, Warhammer Underworlds, Kill Team and Necromunda. I guess it's kind of nice that there's quite so much variety, and certainly the Warhammer 40k ones and the Kill Team ones should be relevant for current 40k collectors, and Heresy can often have some pretty interesting stuff as well. It probably does mean that any one game system isn't going to receive absolutely loads though. With so much to get through, it's not like they're going to sit and talk about Warhammer 40k for an hour, so I'd certainly temper expectations there. Going into this, I probably wouldn't build up too much hope for enormous 40k reveals. I feel like it very much does feel like the community thing to get very excited for these and then get kind of disappointed when their faction out of the 26 in Warhammer 40k doesn't receive anything. Last time we got an AdMech Sniper character, a new Imitek the Stormlord, some new Striking Scorpions, and previews from Codex AdMech and Codex Necrons, though quite a lot of discussion afterwards was that was kind of underwhelming. In all honesty, I'd expect that most of Games Workshop reveals generally tend to be of this kind of nature. A couple of characters, a squad and a couple of book previews I think is alright for one of these things. It's interesting enough, though I wouldn't go in expecting entire army ranges to be redone every single one of these previews. They do quite a lot of them over the year, once every month or two. It is always interesting to speculate on 40k possibilities though. As we know at the moment, the codexes that we're waiting for are AdMech and Necrons, and previously they had said that Necrons were getting more models when they revealed Imitek the Stormlord. Since then we've had the new Overlord with the Shroud, but it's always possible that they could have another miniature, and they have certainly teased Orican the Diviner really quite heavily in the text of previous teasers. I feel like either him, Trazin, or both would be real crowd pleasers. They're some of the most iconic Necron characters appearing in the book The Infinite and Divine. I feel if either Necrons or AdMech are getting more content, then the Necrons are more likely to have that. There's just a fair few things that still need updating for them despite their extensive range refresh in 9th, things like the standard Locust Destroyers, or new sculpts for the Deceiver or the Nightbringer, hopefully going Void Dragon scale at some point. Otherwise, out of the next Codex releases, Games Workshop has already told us the full roster of spring ones that will be coming out for Warhammer 40k, Dark Angels, Custodes, Orcs, Chaos Marines and Tau Empire. All really quite major factions with big followings in the game. There really is a sense that they're trying to do the popular armies early. I don't think that we're going to be getting any mass reveals of multiple content from these books, not when we're building up for the AdMech and the Necrons, but it's really not impossible that they could show us a bit more about the first one of these that came out, whichever one it turns out to be. And all of them basically have things that I think people are already soft expecting them to come out with, some a bit more confirmed than others. The Dark Angels are kind of likely to get a full range release similar to the Black Templars, given the arrival of their Primarch this year. New Terminators have paved the way for that, and Games Workshop kind of hinted that they'll be getting some new Terminator sculpts at some stage in the future. It would be nice to see some Deathwing Knights or Command Squads on the Primaris type scale. Otherwise, they pretty much have to do something for the Raven Wing as well, probably a variant on the Outrider bike, but all Raven winged up, probably with the Plasma Talons. And if they go the same as Black Templars, it'd probably be the rest of the cast of characters getting updates. Samael, Belial, and Ezekiel seem like some of the most likely candidates, and they also did have a prominent picture of Asmodai in the art as well, maybe implying that he could be one of the next. Otherwise, the Custodies have loads of room to expand, ideally some of the Forge World type units going into plastic with unique dreadnoughts and tank variants would be good. For the Orcs, it's maybe a bit less clear, though I think that Tank Busters are certainly very high on the wish list. They could really use a Commando-style remake with that kind of sad monopose Finecast kit. For the Chaos Space Marines, bikes are one of the most obvious choices, and they were rumoured to be coming with the big release that they had last time round. Maybe they were held back here. And for the Tau Empire, we basically know that there's going to be a Crutox on the way, given one of the rumour engines. It'd be nice if they tied that in with a bit more of an extensive overdo of the Crute and the Vespid. A new Shaper and a Vespid kit would be highly appreciated, given that again they're kind of ancient miniatures at this point. Always the room for a few more curveballs though. Space Marines I feel like could have some things released at any time. Things like Cato Sicarius, Pedro Cantor and Vulcan could all easily get character miniatures, basically whenever Games Workshop wish. Plus I guess eventually they'll get around to releasing things from the Leviathan box set like the Ballistus Dreadnought, unless they're going to do things like it with the Brutalis where it's basically not on sale for a protracted period after it comes out. Looking further afield, and we also basically know that World Eaters and Leagues of Votan are going to be getting a lot more models this edition, but these seem perhaps more likely to drop alongside their Codex books as opposed to coming out individually, unless Games Workshop want to throw them a bone in the meantime with say a full squad of those Leagues of Votan jump pack guys. Otherwise, for Horus Heresy, we do have the handy timeline for them as well. The timeline promised us in autumn that we get a new Primarch, which turned out to be Fulgrim but more Snake. The Lords of War that they mentioned turned out to be the Cerastus variants, the Castigator, and the Acheron. And they had some new Mark III armour and the Derrideo Dreadnought as well, redone in plastic. That would bring us on to Winter, where they mentioned that they'd get an Assault Squad plus some new characters and upgrades from the Forge World side of things. But the thing that I think has been most interesting for a while now is the tempting prospect of a mystery army release, which seems to have a high likelihood of coming with this preview, as we seem to be going towards the start of winter now. By the way that they're calling the release an army release, it implies that it's not going to just be either supporting things or more Space Marines. Space Marines have already basically had an entire army release, so it might not make more sense for them. I think generally it's going to be the possibility of 3 different factions, either Solar Auxilia, the Mechanicum Automata, and things from the Heresy era stuff, or Custodians and Sisters of Silence. Given the weirdly delayed release of Legions Imperialis, it looks like Solar Auxilia might be one of the most likely things to have on the cards. It seems that Games Workshop are really trying to bring them into the limelight a bit more, basically the Heresy era human soldiers with a lot more techie weapons than the present era Imperial Guard are likely to get. The Legions Imperialis teasers have shown us a few things that they don't really have in resin in Forge World at the moment, and maybe that's a soft hint that we might get things like their Heavy Sentinels that they've had revealed for that game system, or other things brought into plastic like those Charonite Ogrins. Admech Automata will be cool, though probably not very relevant for 40k, as they're kind of unlikely to get patched rules for there, given how they approach Forge World and Heresy stuff. Perhaps particularly as they recently decided to remove the Heresy era dreadnoughts and things from the contemporary 40k setting outside of Legends. Perhaps the most interesting of the releases for a 40k perspective could be if they go for Custodies or Sisters of Silence, getting things like their unique Contemptor classes, the Telemon Heavy Dreadnought, or new weird and wonderful things for the Sisters of Silence could be really quite fun if they do allow that to be fielded in Warhammer 40k, and I feel like compared with most armies they're a lot more likely to there. I feel like they're popular enough that it'll probably happen at some stage, but there's no saying that it's going to happen right now. Finally, for the grim darkness of the far future, we've got the Kill Team releases, and it's kind of interesting that we're seeing another release before we've even heard any hint that the Salvation box is actually going to come out yet. That was the teased one with Space Marine Scouts against Striking Scorpions, both really quite hotly anticipated kits. And I think that the box set is going to be quite popular now they're not bundling a massive amount of terrain in there that people might or might not want, and instead selling that separately for the people who would like it. I am quite looking forward to getting my hands on some Space Marine Scouts in particular. I think that the models are quite nice, and the rules are pretty fun in game right now. I guess if that gets announced to be going on pre-order on Sunday, then we'll know when that happens, but otherwise we might have 2 different Kill Team releases that we're waiting for. The setting of the box set is likely to be for their aquatic world and drill rig type terrain that they've had going on this time round, certainly switching it up a bit compared with the Space Hulk and boarding actions type terrain. Could be pretty fun to see other variations on that. Maybe they could try and represent something like an entire 40k maritime ship. Otherwise, the Kill Team releases I think are really quite a nice addition to the 40k setting. They keep a fairly steady stream of revamped and updated and upgraded squads coming, either entirely new sculpts like the Striking Scorpions, or upgrade kits that we've had in the past, such as say the one for the Chaos Legionaries, which added a few more interesting options. As for what comes out though, it tends to be really quite random. They don't really have any sort of sense of logic to where the Kill Team fights are supposed to be set. It's just supposed to be a generic backdrop that any of 40k's many races can turn up to duke it out over. I must admit I was low-key surprised that we got through the entire Space Hulk series of releases without seeing a Terminator or Genestealer turn up to that setting. Even if it did turn out, they were both getting releases around the start of 10th edition. For the rumours out there, I noticed that Mr. Valrak had said that there's some chance that it might be Night Lords versus Mandrakes, which I think is kind of cool. Full credit to him, of course, if that does turn out to be right. I feel like Night Lords in particular will be a real crowd pleaser for the Chaos Space Marine side of things. Games Workshop and Forge World make a fair bit of custom stuff for the Traitor Legions in the Horus Heresy, but their current 40k counterparts just feel like they're really neglected by comparison. If they did do something like the Death Corps of Krieg style release that they had, then that would be very, very cool. I do like the amount of stuff that came with that kit, where you could use a lot of the components to help make the rest of the army more Krieg themed if you wanted to. Mandrakes would also be really nice for the Drukhari as well. They've got a lot of their resin kits that are just absolutely desperately in need of an update right now. Mandrakes, Grotesques, and the Beast Packs are all just completely out of production. Kind of a shocking level of bad support there, given that their core range isn't enormous, and it's pretty weird to have a lot of their core units just entirely out of production in terms of getting people to buy them. Finally, we might have also had a soft hint as to the Age of Sigmar content, which I'll admit I'm not as well informed about. A little while back they gave us a teaser trailer that said you're invited to a feast. It was a royal invitation to the finest party in all the realms, heavily implying that it's set in the Age of Sigmar setting as opposed to the old world. And they mentioned this trailer in the announcement to the World Championships previews that are coming up, so basically whatever this was teasing should turn up there. As you might expect, you can't have anything nice in Warhammer, so the teaser trailer alternates between a rather nice looking banquet and a whole pile of charnel flesh on the table. So it looks like the thing that's on the menu is probably going to be whoever turns up to the feast, so I'd guess maybe something death or vampire related, though please let me know down in the comments if you know what that's going to be better than I do. In any case, whatever turns up should be some fairly interesting stuff. Sounds like there's going to be at least 2 relevant things for Warhammer 40k, and I'll look forward to covering that here on the channel when we get news. Let me know what you're expecting or what you're hoping for, or anything else that I might have missed. If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, or check back later if you'd like to see any other news and updates from Games Workshop. I do tend to cover their news and releases, and post other 40k stuff just about every day. Finally, if you have been enjoying videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and you can find that linked in the video description if you'd like to help support. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.